This conference will now be recorded.
All right, it's 4 o'clock on a beautiful Wednesday. Call the Lake Stevens Commissioner meeting to order. We have one piece of business in leading to turning over to the utility chair, and that is to elect a utility chair. We pass this back and forth between the city and the district each year. City had it last year, district has it this year. And so I would open my fellow commissioners for any nominations.
Make a nomination that we make Commissioner Andrew Wright the chair for the utility committee this year.
Well, and I'll second that. And is there any discussion there from Commissioner Wright?
Great. I'm honored.
Well, good. I would accept. If nominated, I would accept. If elected, I wouldn't serve. But hey, if that's not the case,
I'll call for the vote then. All in favor?
aye.
Hi.
Aye. All right, that passed. Congratulations, Commissioner Wright. And at this point, I'll turn the meeting over to you for the joint City of Lake Stevens and Lake Stevens Sewer District utility meeting.
Okay. All right, then we'll go ahead and open the Utilities Committee for January 25th, 2023. And let's go ahead and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, on the agenda, we're going to proceed with the roll call. So we have sewer commissioners, Kevin Koshi, Dan Lorenzen, myself, Andrea Wright, and on the city, Mayor Brett Daly, Gary Peters-Hagan, and Ryan Donahue. We're so excited to have you. Can we give you a second, Ryan, if I can call you Ryan?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Ryan Donahue, recently appointed to council by my fellow council members to fill the vacancy of Mr. Sean Fredericks. Very happy to be here and look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you.
We're
Welcome
excited to have
aboard.
you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you for serving our community.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll go ahead and proceed on the agenda to number 3, the public forum. Is there anyone on the virtual wall or in our room that would like to participate in comments to the Utilities Committee? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone volunteering at this point, so I'm going to go ahead and close the public forum and move on to agenda item number 4, which is information sharing of the planning, coordination, and management. And I'll turn the time to Mariah.
Okay. Annexation, this is just an update on the district annexation ILA. This was presented back at the November 30th meeting that we had. It's the same copy of the agreement that had been sent over to the city to be presented to council, which is the first step in us being able to proceed with the annexation of the areas that are on the map there that's in your packet. Again, it's 2 areas of the district. One's 254 acres, the other one's 26.8 acres. And it's over 2,000 people that are there that are customers of the district, but are not able to vote or to run for office because of the district boundary. So just looking for an update on when you might expect that one.
Dan and I, when we met last week, we did talk about this item, and Commissioner Lawrence, excuse me, and we, in layman's terms, I guess, are asking our side of the table. We were advised by our legal counsel to not move forward with it. And so I guess I'm looking to Gene for layman's terms as to why we shouldn't do that. On the other hand, the process that it would take, my understanding would nullify the ordinance that we've already passed or would need to be modified. So we'd have to go back and redo that. And the timeframes involved to do that kind of lead us to about where we are expecting to get this interlocal assumption agreement from the sewer district. So kind of the thought was, why don't we just take care of this all at one time? Because we're not really gaining any speed, I guess, going through the council action. So,
Are you seeking it ordinance 1108 to take out the district, that ordinance?
yeah, I believe that's the number that we passed back. What's it?
So we've had annexations since then as well. And so even the boundary description is submitted to the boundary review board would need to update it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just one of those things I think when you and I were having a conversation on. I mean, I know that we've done this in previous years because they were identified to kind of bring you up to speed. I know that you're coming in. We in years past, we've had small pockets throughout the city at the time or the immediate area of the UGA that when we've had people come and want to run for office, the sewer commission, they couldn't do it because just by chance, we realized that they had never really been formally brought into both the district or the city vice president. So the way the mechanism has to work for this, because we're a special purpose district, we either have to have all these petitions, or if the city agrees with it under the unification agreement that we have in place, then we just put it and bear the cost, taking it to either the general election or a special election that may occur like in a February. Some would go to April, but they're more expensive. Our big contention a lot of times, and because of what it came up at one time when I was a commissioner in the sewer back in 12-13 era, was there was people there that didn't, and so it was clearly fixed at the time. And the reason being is it's not as much about what we've got going on in the unification and having some debate over doing it. It's representation of the people out there. The way we look at it, and the way I always looked at it is, the folks that are paying their monthly bill to the district and, really as part of the city, because we're all going to become one, have a right to petition and redress any grievances they may have. But as it stands right now, and I think there's a council member that lives in there, if he came and wanted to debate an issue with me, I could just go like this and say, you know what? You're not in the district, even though we take your money. I don't think that would be an equitable way of solving a debate with somebody that would make them happy. So really, this, and I think I brought it up at one of our last meeting, it's just about, let's just rectify this. This is the low-hanging fruit that we should just pick and just move on. I think Gary and I had some very good conversation was, as we try to move through a process, we get caught up on a lot of things, both sides. And it's these little things that are driving me insane at times because it shouldn't be. I mean, let's concentrate on the bigger, harder things that we have to do, not these things. Because if we can't agree on the small things that should just be a no-brainer to both sides, how are we ever going to get past the big issues?
And my response to that was, as you folks do as well, is we do have legal counsel that advises us. And that legal counsel advised us not to enter into this. And so, as I said, I would bring back in layman's terms as to what that reasoning is. So,
May I just
sure.
point out one thing though? So even if, when we get this document signed, no matter what, there's still the election in the fall. And so what if you get 2 new commissioners in who have no interest in proceeding with the merger? No matter what, there's an election in the fall is my point to you, and 2 of the commissioner seats are going to be voted on, even if that is signed.
If we have the agreement signed by this body by then they need to abide by it, because the agreement's signed.
No, and it would be something we advise. But I guess what it feels like, and I know what each side, because Gary and I have great conversations on how we each feel about certain things. And just to put it on the table, this feels like extortion on our part, not getting to go to a vote to get these people in because we haven't agreed to.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't want to call you.
I would use the word extortion.
Well, it goes both ways in a way. And I mean, I think
let's
that.
do this. Let's have Gene explain in layman's terms as to why we advised not to do this before we get too much going back and forth.
Actually, I think you did a great job describing it. I mean, that's exactly it, is that we've already got rules in place, ordinances that the city had passed, that if we sign this, it flies in the face of that, it violates us. We would have to go back, and we're prepared to do that. The city attorneys advise us to wrap it into the whole package of the early unification that we're talking about doing, wrap it all in there, all the other issues that we might have on the table, one document, it's all done and complete, and we can move forward and address many things versus just onesie-twosies.
It just,
We realize though, even the contract, the assumption agreement we're going to share by middle of next month, even if you loved every piece of it, we signed it that day. It would still be 3 years before these guys can vote. So we got 900 people in our community that can't vote in a place that they provide the dollar. So to me, this one, I have to get, this one should be an easy one to solve. But, if we want to leave those 400 people or 900 people out there and
Kevin, why
move
would
on,
it take 3 years for them
what changes when we sign the assumption agreement? You still have to go through the same process, right? Are you saying that if we come to terms of the agreement, all of a sudden that'll go to the council and it'll go to vote and we'll do the same process we're talking about here, but we'll feel better because we have an agreement in place? I mean, I don't see that changing anything.
So why can't the assumption be, for the annexation, be a bullet in the assumption that says upon signing this is annexed in? Why would it sounds like expulsion?
well, I think both sides can take a look at that. I mean, I think if this wasn't an issue in previous years, and I've been with the city for 25 years prior to leaving in 2016, so I got a lot of history knowing the politics because I got very involved with it over the years. It was never an issue to be able to, once the unification agreement between the city council back then and the previous board coming together saying, hey, we're going to work collectively together to just make sure that when we find these things that they were able to adopt it. It wasn't tied to a master plan all of a sudden because something else was going on. Because where does it stop at that rate? It's like, well, we want this included. We want that included. It was never anything on the horizon before that to have these annexations go. I mean, is that going to be the same thing like when we get the developers who have areas outside the growth management, and well, not necessarily outside, but not in the city, but want to come in right now? Because we've been very diligent when these developers who have identified parcels of land wanting to bring it into the district. So the city can eventually have some future development, because right now some of those things weren't in the cities as far as the sewer district. Do we hold that up and say, well, we're going to wait till we get a master agreement? No, it's taking of a property right from a developer who has decided to expend their dollars in the hopes of making money by developing. It's no different in my mind with these folks that live in an area that suddenly want to have the right to vote. That's the basic premise to this. It's the right to vote and select.
If this issue has been out here since the mid-90s, why wasn't it taken care of 10 years?
Why it wasn't identified, I couldn't tell you. But
So I guess the point is, what's the big deal? I mean, what's the big rush?
well, I
These
think,
folks haven't been able to vote since 1993, I think, in the case of the Helena Hills. So
but there are some people now who are recognizing and are suddenly coming forward and saying, hey guys, can you rectify this? And we've generally done that with due diligence when it's been identified. It was only when we were finally doing some documents that went to the DRB recently that they identified, oh, by the way, we noticed a couple things. Because trust me, if it would have came back up then, I guarantee you the board then, or when I was on it back in the 12-13 era, would have definitely said, let's get that fixed. Because I knew two people who wanted to run that lived off Walker Hill Road and up at the high school that definitely wanted to run as a commissioner before.
So we recognized it in the last election because Councilmember Ewing brought it up.
Absolutely.
It was brought up.
Absolutely.
That was
that was
2
even
years
after.
ago.
Right. But it's recognizing and trying to bring it. And when we tried to bring it this last year, saying, hey, now we know this stuff, and it's not making it, because we thought, okay, let's get it on the November election. It'll cost us a lot less than if we went to a special election, and there was no movement. And then we were hoping we could get it into the February election, but we had a deadline, but we couldn't meet that by December 16th, I think it was, when we had a discussion before. So even if we were to try something now, it's either going to be in April or it's going to be back into November. So this is the little things that I think sometimes where, I mean, I think you and I have some conversations where we all pull back a little bit. And I don't like that in that sense, where this shouldn't be. I mean, like you as the mayor and
Andrea or Kevin as the chair, or when I was chair, there wasn't something I'd like, I went to the general manager and then I said, let's get legal on the phone, because there's a way to fix this. You know, this should not be because this is what causes us to stand up. I mean, I hate going to the meetings with Gary, arguing the same stuff over and over every month. I want something new to argue about.
Gene, help me understand how it nullifies that ordinance.
Because we passed an ordinance to move in a certain direction already, and it's the opposite of what you guys are asking in this agreement.
Isn't just the agreement asking for annexation for this group, right?
Correct.
So how's that how would you see that's an opposite? You're an attorney.
I was just gonna say, so, okay, as someone brand new to this, my understanding of it is, were this to go to the extreme and end up in court, then someone's gonna throw that back in your face and say, if your whole plan was to move forward in this direction, how come back here at point A, you went this direction? And so,
To just allow people to vote.
well, because
It's not that.
it's not that, it's essentially.
What is it then?
It's an
Well, I don't
implicit
want to violate
recognition.
their.
So you're
This is-
recognizing that the
so
district is separate? Is
This
that
is,
what it
this
is?
is me speaking my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, so essentially, it's the potential, and this is, me inferring the thought process of our legal counsel, not what he has told me.
I
But
understand.
as an attorney, any move you make can be, thrown back in your face in a litigation. And so I think it's an abundance of caution, and that's the whole up here.
And then how do we rectify the abundance of caution? Is there something we have to say that we are not going to use this if we are at a standstill? I mean, I don't want that to be because we're being too cautious on both sides, that we think that we're going to revisit this. Because unfortunately, I think Commissioner Koshi, when he was chair, when he first came in, actually had to go through a lot of that because things came back when we went through trying to do some arbitration and mediation, I should say, and it became this big thing. I don't like operating that way. I want to be flat out honest, and I try not to hurt the feelings, but sometimes that's just going to happen. But I think when we're playing with the people's rights, that I may have an inherent, I don't like this, but it isn't just about me. It has to be about who we serve. And in my opinion is, this serves a couple thousand people if the numbers are correct. Now, if there was something that had to be written, that we'd never see this used against each other in some sort of case, further litigation, that's fine. I just want that corrected.
Hey, Miranda, do you, I don't know if you did the research or if Gene did. When's the drop dead date that they need to be annexed with the auditor to be able to be on the next election cycle?
We've already passed it for the next ballot. So now we're into, so we've missed the March one special election, so whatever the one would be.
But for the November ballot, they would need to be annexed by when?
Could you do it on the primary ballot in August?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
The answer.
Yeah.
Because once we get an agreement with the city in order to use your authority to get it onto the ballot, the board has to pass a resolution, and then we need to appoint pro and con people from the community to write their statements, that then go into Snohomish County Auditor's office in order to get onto the ballot. So there's several steps after this agreement happens.
Oh, wait, so just our agreement of the annexation doesn't get them on the ballot?
No.
They have to vote to be on the ballot, vote to be annexed?
Yes, they have to. So special utility districts, water and sewer districts, only have two methods of annexation, either by petition or by election. So petition, obviously gathering signatures from the people in the area, and since they already lie within the city boundaries, we need your authority in order to even get it onto the ballot.
Okay, so
We don't have the ILA method that cities have. that
So
you
the
mentioned
developer
earlier.
did not sign a petition on behalf of the property at the time that the developer extension agreement was signed?
So so they weren't part of they didn't get recorded with the county auditor's office as part of our district. So our boundaries aren't the same. And we're being advised that we cannot that same petition. We would have to get private party to go collect signatures, the district itself, not initiate gathering of signatures.
So I'd have to look at timelines, but I don't like to assume, but my assumption is even if you did get this on a primary ballot and it passed, that would probably not be enough time to get them on the general ballot.
Well, I'll point out also that we sent this over to the city last June. So that would have been.
So we would have went to June to make it to the November general, because that's what we were trying to hit, was that first was the November general. To me, it's not about, if that group decides to take it to election because you guys said okay and they said no, that's their prerogative. I just want to give them the option. I don't think it's fair for us to say, we're just going to hold it that way. You know, let them decide. You know, it's like annexing into the city before petition methods or this new legislative model that they allow to do islands. You know, it's always been, you know, I remember doing petition methods when I was part of the city as a POA, you know, under the police officer association. We would go out and try to see if neighborhoods wanted to come in before we took it to some general elections. But I mean, to me, if they say no, that's their prerogative in the long run. I just want to say we did our part. We allowed you to, you know, in the concept of deciding your fate. It's not like they're going to leave the city. They're still in the city. But if they decide that they don't want to be part of the district and have a represent, you know, an ability to represent themselves, I can't fix that. That's how they spoke. But I just want them to have that ability. Flat out, and that's what I've been trying to say for months. It's like this should be a no-brainer. But you know, again.
Okay, well, here's what we'll do from the city side. We'll go back to our council and our legal and chit chat about it a little bit more. And but what we'd also like to see is a bullet in the annexation or the assumption agreement pertaining to this, and so we have that cause also.
Or any future areas that may not be, I mean, are there any potentially others, I guess? I don't know. You don't know. So maybe have something in there that would take care of that situation in the future too.
Yeah, in theory, I think when they notified us this last time of all the ones that were there, but you know, how they're.
Yeah. So that's what we'll do from the city side.
Okay.
Move on to rates and charges, seizing.
Sure. So I included in your packet a memo that FCS Group did for us. They spent quite a bit of time in 2022 going over our commercial rates and how we apply our GFP to commercial properties coming into the district. And they gave a really clear presentation, I think, on December 22nd in the board meeting. You have time to review that. So they came out of that study with a couple recommendations for us. The first one being to change what we call an equivalent residential unit from 750 cubic feet of water usage down to 600 cubic feet of water usage. So I followed up that information with a presentation at our last board meeting on the 12th of what that would look like for some of our customers. Really a lot of our customers won't see an effect, the smaller ones, because their water usage isn't over 600 already. So really on their monthly bill, they won't see much of a difference. But some of them really would see quite a bit of a difference. One being Sunoco, a couple of grocery stores, the car wash, those businesses that use a lot of water would have a higher in the cubic feet. So we just wanted to present the proposal, the recommendation to utility committee about going from the 750 to 600 cubic feet. And then the second part of the GFC study was how we apply the number of GFCs or ERUs to new building coming on. It followed about the same lines. looking at water usage, and if we're going from the 750 down to the 600, that kind of went along the same line. They also said that the way we're applying it is all right. It's consistent with the community, going based on the square footage of the proposed building that's coming in. So what we did was kind of do an update of what those calculations would be. We added a couple more categories to make it more clear on businesses coming in, and then also did just some spot checks of what some recent developments that come in would have been or will be, just to make sure our numbers look reasonable. And after presenting this to the board last board meeting, I think we'll have a resolution and a proposal in front of them for lowering the ERU for the monthly rates down to the 600, and also changing how we apply those GLCs going forward. And I think the board kind of discussed making sure we have a communication plan, and then maybe implementing mid-year-ish. But I'm open to any questions you have on it.
There was a note in here, and I think in the past that Tenelco had exceeded their BODs dramatically in a couple of instances. For those things, those are past problems, I guess. They've since rectified that, or?
So they have a contract limit in what they can discharge, and they do testing of their discharge and then report those to us. We did some blind testing recently where we took samples in the line from their discharge line and compared to their results, and some of them are dramatically different. So we will be pursuing rectifying that.
They're better or
Way worse.
Yeah, worse, yeah.
So what you found was worse than what they were reported, self-reported.
Yeah. Dealt with this contract issue.
I think the biggest thing that we kind of had some debate over is, like I said, going from a 750 cubic feet down to 600, 300, they really get it. It's going to have an effect. And I think that, one of the biggest things, because I heard it from the public, I think we probably all heard it. So like the big box Costco win it. That ended up only being 12, general facility charges. And a lot of people are like, how does a 40-acre site only get 12 when I can get, a 10-acre site has 50 apartments or, something on that. And so looking at trying to find where the, some equity comes out, because I think what this ends up doing is almost it doubles it, to, it was less than 29 or 28 or something like that. It was right in there. If you had a similar store come in the future, they're going to pay more of what the general facility for that site. And then, of course, instead of 750 cubic feet of water each time, they're going to pay 600. So it does raise that, because our commercial cut sites are, if you weren't aware, we meter those ones. Private homes, we don't have the capability to meter, so that's why they get a fixed rate if you're a single family or a duplex type of. And if you're commercial, multifamily, or a box store or something, you're going to pay based on your water usage. I think it brings it more in line, because we've always had as a district, and it's a balance, because just like I know the city wants to balance, is having development pay for development versus the folks that are already living in the community having to pay for something that, yes, they may enjoy, but they seem to have a lot more. It seems like that the cost to the folks that already live there are paying more. So that's where, me personally as a board member, when we were doing it, and I think that our general manager was saying, we do want to have a robust, outlining of how it's going to affect, because I guarantee you, if the schools or Costco or Safeway or them start getting a bill that looks like it doubled in size, they might have a little consternation what's going on, and that's why we're looking, because we want to get some feedback from obviously the utility committee too. But we knew there was going to be a point something has to come into play in order to be able to say that development is paying their fair share.
On your list here, is the Soper Hill commercial, is that just the AM/PM of only 8 ERUs? That's not the development on the north side, is it?
So originally they didn't know what businesses are coming in for Soper Hill Commercial, so that's the original infrastructure that went in. Depending on, so they have 8 credits that got paid for originally. And then depending on what comes in, an additional GSP calculation is done and applied to the business.
So if you get the Genesco that has 100 units of adult assisted living, then that's 100. Or is that taken as an EDU?
So
ERU? ERU.
equivalent residential unit. So it'll depend on what the business is coming in, like I said. But if it's an assisted living facility with multiple units, then it's obviously much higher. Basically like a single family residence that's coming in. And so that property only has the 8 credits, and so maybe they get credit for like 1 or 2 units, but then they'll end up paying for it to GSP based on their projected use.
I appreciate you bringing this forward to us. I mean, it's, I think it's in line with what the assumption agreement talks about. And I'm glad you brought it forward. And so I guess that's kind of indicates to me that, as you talked about, this kind of doing things together, I guess. I will say I was a little surprised that the discussion about the contract negotiations, your pay increase and so forth was not brought forward, at least from an educational standpoint, so that the city can kind of compare.
We're happy to discuss that in a non-public meeting.
Okay, great, but that didn't happen. So I guess what I'm saying is, in the future, I hope that we kind of take this approach where you do discuss those issues with the utility committee as it dictates in our agreement. So
I think we need to be careful on what the agreement dictates or not. This has been a core issue, certainly since I've been in the seat for the 5 years, in terms of where is the management piece of the district and what oversight the utility district has. Personally, I'm fine being transparent on the vast majority of what occurs, with some minor exceptions that are typically wrapped up in legal related issues between the two entities. But I'd say, can we close out on this item? And then if we want to pick up other things or other things we're concerned about that might be related, I'm just concerned about the time. I want to make sure we get to the assumption update and the other things we have on the agenda.
certainly, it was just, I'm just highlighting, I appreciate you bringing this forward. So
Great. Can we move on to C then with Dan and Gary, the accelerated assumption update?
Yeah, we can't, I just want to make sure everybody's happy
no.
with B, that there isn't anything looming that you guys see that you think that is going to obviously cause you some consternation. And I think this is the opportunity that we got, because I know the Board of Commissioners are going to eventually see this, revisit them. And what I don't want all of a sudden is like, we didn't know you were acting so fast, even though we got a time limit that goes out. I just want to kind of understand, make sure.
I think it's great you're recognizing the consultant's work, in the sense that, you know, the water consumption standards through code have changed. It's much different than it was. Low flow faucets, toilets, things of that sort. Water consumption has adjusted for single family residents. So I'm glad that you're recognizing that in, you know, kind of incorporating some what's actually happening today versus what took place 10 years ago or whatever. And I guess secondly, I've always thought, you know, the Costco was kind of a weird example of, as you mentioned, you know, a humongous building coming in with the amount of people that frequent the lavatories and their food processing, to have such a small charge against it seemed like it was out of balance. So I appreciate you looking at it. I appreciate you bringing it to us for education purposes. And I'm comfortable with what you're doing.
Yeah. I just want to make sure that we are on that same, because I know sometimes we leave thinking one thing and then like, I'm not really sure. And then we take action, or you guys take action, so then we're all kind of,
Yeah.
I want to get that in as clear as we can. So, yeah.
As far as the item, I mean, we're still on schedule, I believe, for the mid part of February to get some sort of draft.
Right.
Is that-
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess that's the update, right?
Yeah.
I would share, I mean, I can give you a little more detail on that. I mean, we are doing checkpoint calls with the folks in the district side every Friday morning to monitor progress, to make sure that we're hitting that date. I spent 2 hours this morning working through a 1-page draft of a communication plan that will be incorporated into that agreement for your all review. So taking it very serious, we have a very disciplined approach around it, and we're going to monitor it to completion. So what you're going to receive is going to be a best efforts to be able to bring us together within the 3-year time frame like we've talked about.
Awesome to hear. Yeah.
Anything else from the two of you on that?
No, I think the only thing that I really, and I relate to you, is I wanted to make sure it was all inclusive, because we're not going to play the game of, oh, we want to add something else. Oh, we need to add, no, that's, once it's presented and each side takes away, then it starts to go. I don't negotiate in the way like, oh, I forgot this one. No, it needs to be, because.
I guess I said, I pledge as far as the council member, we're going to be expedient on this. We're not going to drag our feet. We're going to get on it as a top priority. So hopefully I have concurrence with my mayor and my other city council member here. But my intent is, as soon as we receive it, we're going to sit down and start working on it together, so this doesn't linger. So hopefully that'll be helpful to you folks.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to make sure it was in the public aspect of what we that. Once we present something, I just didn't want it to.
Right.
Only put down another public record on that would cause problems. So.
And we'll continue to meet.
Yeah.
We met last week, and our meetings are very fruitful. We air our differences and work things out. So
Starbucks appreciates your business.
not so much lately.
Okay, should we move forward with the project review, Mariah?
Sure. So included in your packet, I gave you a new map for our 2023 capital improvement projects that are planned for this year. And I also gave you a copy of the draft budget, Schedule 5, which covers our capital expenditures for the year. The top portion of Schedule 5 is all what's in the CIP. So that was our recent comp plan that was approved last year, and also went over to the city for your approval and incorporation as well. I'll point out that projects on the CIP number 1 through 15 were all slated for 2022, but are incomplete at this time. So they just carry over into 2023 until they can be done. And then lines, well, the numbers are off, but 16, 17, and 18, the membrane replacement through the Station 3C rehab. Those ones are the projects that were slated for 2023. And then the last line, 131st Avenue Northeast, that's the project that we had discussed earlier to extend sewer to where the public works shop is. So that's actually slated for 2025, but we threw it in on 2023 budget plan so that we have a placeholder when that moves forward. And then I'll also say, so we've got a couple of these projects that didn't get done in 2022. They're still waiting for permitting. So we have the 20th Street Northeast Business Loop Road to the Station 2C. the lift station 2C upgrade, the lift station 2C upgrade fourth main, lift station decommissioning of lift station 5C, and then the rehab of lift station 4C and lift station 6C. So all of those are with the city for permitting.
So the LS2C upgrade and the force main there, that is the dip in the road by east of Jenny's Cookies and.
Yeah.
Okay. And we are, from the city standpoint, we are working in concert with them on that because of the storm drainage issues. Maybe Aaron can answer that.
So I will say we've been contacted at various times from everyone from city engineers to State Shannon about the stormwater project. So there's many city staff that are definitely aware of the 2C project.
Yeah. But we also have done the project for raising the road and putting a massive culvert under there, so.
Yes, Councilman, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, we have been coordinating with the sewer district on it's more of a flood mitigation project, culvert replacement effort. And we've reviewed their plans with consideration of our very drafty plans, and we'll keep coordinating on that. I wouldn't expect our project to hold their sewer project up or affect it at this time. Mariah, unless you have something to add to that.
Nope.
I think the one thing I'm worried about is there's a lift station near the culvert on 20th Street Northeast that is not going to be relocated. So we will have a bit of a challenge protecting that facility from future high flows, but we'll work through it.
And that's 2C, correct? Yeah.
That's just one thing that we kind of talked about last week,
Right.
as to where was that in the process
Yeah.
and so forth. So just more informational purpose than anything.
Yeah, just trying to understand it, because I think from the district, I mean, we know that that thing there's gonna be a lot of work in 125th and all of that there, where that could also be beneficial to the city side if you're not doing that, because with the work that we have to do, we'll be upgrading the ADA ramps and everything. I think there's half a dozen or more is what we kind of identified that we're gonna have to upgrade during our process. So that's beneficial to the city, because I know that at one time there was a lot of public comments, it seemed like, about ADA stuff. But I mean, I think that's one of those things that this is a great project that we can show, hey, we're moving on some of this stuff, but it does fix, because there's a lot of issues surrounding that area that we need to upgrade as part of your guys' overall master plan of what you were looking at trying to get downtown. So, yeah, there is some work around that section of the old outflow channel, because, well, you know, once you dig down, you're gonna find the Pink Palace in there, because that's where they dumped it when that school went down underneath those duplexes and everything else. But other than that, you know, I think it's just one of those things that it would be nice for us to plan and kind of get some feedback in the permit process, so we know where we can start, because it holds up everything from our perspective of trying to go out and get people to bid on a project, because if they don't know exactly what we're doing, it holds up everything. We don't want it to hold up anymore. But yeah, we want to coordinate, especially if you're gonna have to, I think that Aaron had said one time, they may have to, I don't know if it's a bridge or a coal box culvert or something had to go in there in order to keep the road. Because I'm sure there's probably about 2 feet of asphalt with all the overlays over the years that have been put there, because it's just a spongy section of road, so.
I'll beg the question, I guess, what are you're anticipating having approval by, and we are anticipating granting approval by?
I think that's a question for maybe
Okay.
Aaron or Russ' group.
Okay.
I'll check on the status of the permits. As far as I know, my team has reviewed them. There may be some comments, but Mariah, I will reach out this week on those permits and let you know what's happening.
So,
Yeah.
Likewise, I'm going to be doing the same thing. So
Excellent.
we'll get some information next week.
And then and to fall back on the number 17, the 131st project. So is that's in conjunction with the housing development that's going in, correct? Is that going to happen this summer?
Let me look back at the map. So which project, Mayor?
That's
one-
the Centennial Plat.
Centennial Park plat needs to go in first before this project.
Yeah, those would be combined.
And will that plat go in this summer?
They've done their initial grading on the site. I don't know what their plans are beyond that.
Yeah, I thought I heard once before they were trying to get, I mean, supply issues were part of it, but they're gonna be paying for most of it from 20th Street up to their project that we were going to, I think,
So what happens in the event they shelve their project due to economic reasons?
well, then that's maybe something we both look at. I mean, what it does is it raises the cost for both of us to do it, because now instead of going 600 feet, we're gonna go.
Right, and we can hold the late comers on them.
Yeah, you could, absolutely, you know.
Yeah, we gotta go to the intersection.
Yeah.
And so do we do that or do we wait it? Is getting sewer to Public Works? I think it's that. I think we need to get it there.
Yeah, I guess I would say maybe somebody at the city reach out to that entity and see what their plans are. And if they're going to vacillate or, just sit there, I would say we go forth and hold the latecomers agreement on that whole street there and go for it.
Because I think wasn't it being managed, if I was correct, like Pace Engineering took it on. From my understanding, there was something that Pace was going to do it. And I know Robin, who worked for Pace, just retired this last year, from my understanding, when I was to one of the conferences I was looking for. They told me, no, he's retiring at the end of the year. That's why he didn't come. So he may, but I mean, the firm, I'm sure, is still doing a lot of it.
Yeah, Russ, can you reach out to them and find out what their plans are, and that'll maybe give us an audible on that one.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw him nod.
Great. Anything else on that, Mariah? Okay, let's move forward to the number 6 development. Apologize.
If I could hit one more thing,
Yeah.
Andrew, can with that. I don't know what your plans are for the vehicle replacements, which might give Aaron a chit chat. We saved quite a bit of money on this last budget go around doing a lease program on Enterprise. And it's a very good program, so you might talk to Aaron about what they did there.
So for that one, we had a 2007 Dakota, 2014 ProMaster, 2017 Outback, and a forklift that we've done.
So they would do the light duty vehicle kind of stuff right now, I think. So they might talk.
Thank you.
Cool.
Anything else? Okay, let's go ahead and move on to number 6, development review.
This is the standing item where we have our list of DEAs for you. The only difference, I believe, since last time that we met with the Fairleigh DEA is on there, and it's just about ready for approval. We're waiting on a final legal item. But yeah, any questions?
Not seeing any more activity with folks saying
No.
we want to come be part of the district.
This list is much smaller than it used to be.
Yeah.
And most of them are closed on the list already. So yeah, the total open DEAs to be paid is only 309. And only 45 of those have even started construction.
Have you guys seen a lot of inquiries in the city drop in that sense, or are you still getting?
I think from the housing standpoint, Russ, correct me if I'm wrong, yes, but we're getting a lot of inquiries on the commercial side.
Yeah, we're staying steady with counter calls and pre-applications. We're seeing a big shift to multifamily and a lot of inquiries on commercial. So yeah, we're continuing to stay busy and still getting in building permits from some of the older projects that you guys have referenced. So
Great. Anything else on development review? All right, let's move on to number 7, action items. I'd like to entertain a motion for approving the minutes from December 21st, 2022.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from the December 21st meeting.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. And then our next meeting, so we're required to do our utilities meetings quarterly. I'm guessing that you probably want to meet, so on February 22nd at 4 p.m.
That timing in the calendar, I think, would work well. That gives, we hit the 15th. That gives a nice week for our city partners to, review the document and form opinions or praise or consternation or whatever, and then we come back and we can dig into it.
That work on everyone's calendars?
Is it the 22nd?
Yeah, February 22nd at 4 p.m. here. Okay, great. Let's plan on that. And then we're about ready to adjourn. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So that comes back to the district side of the meeting, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you.
Close.